welcome to Nutrition and Us with Dr. Jenelle Robinson. Today, we're going to be talking about the importance of nutrition and wellness with Dr. Robinson. And I'm also pleased to be joined by the founder of Black Men's Health, Mr. John D. Brown. Today, we're going to get with it. We're going to get real. We're going to get into the deepness of it all, but there's also going to be some shallowness because shallowness is good. So for me to begin, I'm going to start by letting you guys know who Dr. Robinson is, and we'll delve into our discussion, right? Dr. Jenelle Robinson is a scholar, educator, and artist. She's an advocate for improving the health of communities of color. Dr. Jenelle has committed to teaching, research, and service projects that promote experiential learning, leadership, and the utilization of the performing arts in health and nutrition education pedagogy to reach underserved ethnic communities. She possesses a PhD in nutrition, an MA in dietetics, and a BS in health education, and certifications in health education and life coaching. As a nutrition professor at one of the top 10 HBCUs in the nation, that's Florida A&M University to you, people who are listening, Dr. Robinson combines her unique poetic artistic words with a captivating delivery to reach hundreds of thousands. So today, everyone, without further ado, Dr. Jenelle Robinson.
Hello. Thank you for that awesome introduction.
Absolutely. And so when we do these things, we love to do a little icebreaker. When people hear of like a nutritionist, sometimes they think of people who sit atop a mountain in a yoga posture, eating lettuce and air, and that's not real. That's a stereotype. So I wanted to ask you this question as an icebreaker. Dr. Robinson, what is the best meal you've ever had, and what made it so memorable for you?
You know what? I can't even point to a best meal. I'll say any Thanksgiving dinner at my grandmother's house growing up. So growing up, we would go to my father's mother's house. She was an amazing cook, and she would have a spread. So you got, turkey and ham and mac and cheese and yams and look, it's so many things in the cornbread dressing, and not stuffing, but the cornbread dressing. There is a difference with the gravy. The gravy. And she had just an array of pies and cakes. So anytime, any Thanksgiving before she passed away years ago, anytime at her house, all of the meals were amazing. So.
Absolutely.
That's a discussion. I was about to say that's a discussion in itself, the dressing versus the stuffing, right? So,
it is.
We'll save that for another session.
One doesn't have raisins. One doesn't have raisins.
Oh man, yeah. One does not have raisins. Yeah.
Neither one does have raisins, right? The stuffing doesn't have raisins, does it?
Or cranberries.
Some folks stuffing has raisins.
Oh my God.
Absolutely. And what made you want to dabble in the poetry? Like, who inspired you, to write?
So initially, when I was in junior high school, I think rap was growing in its importance in our lives. It was growing in its popularity, and so I really wanted to be a rap artist. And I and a friend of mine at the time, we were heavily influenced by, a variety of rap artists, but we came up with our own rap names. I was Foxy J, and Foxy Brown, Foxy J, and she was Queen B. So we would sit and we would write these raps when they would come out. Like, I don't know if you remember Bone Thugs and Harmony. Like we would write down their raps, anything. The harder it was, the better it was. We'd write it. And then we'd be able to recite. This was back when you had rewind forward, when you had tapes. And so really got into that, and then got into writing our own raps and doing our own thing with rap. And I thought at one time I wanted to be a rap artist. I was like, okay, Did not go in that direction, but I heavily believe that all of the skills, all of the gifts, all of the talents that I had, transitioned and were useful to me in my career. And so at some point, really it was around the time my brother passed away, I started transitioning that rap into poetry. And so I started writing poetry and wrote a book and did multiple spoken word CDs, and then just got out in the community and did it. And it really, for me, it was more of a coping mechanism. But it started, there was not, I was not deep into poetry. I wasn't one of those people who read a lot of Langston Hughes or Maya Angelou. I did a lot of reading. At the time, I was, heavily church. So a lot of my reading was influenced by David from the Bible, baby. But if it wasn't the Bible, then it was the ratchet stuff. So that's the rap going.
It's called balance. It's called balance.
Exactly, balance. So so that was what got me into poetry initially. It's really the hip hop community is really what got me into poetry initially.
Mm.
You said Twister and Bone Thugs. You were mimicking that. Does that mean you have something you want to spit today?
You know what? Let me tell you something. I remember the first rap that I wrote, and again, it was heavily influenced by Little Kim and Foxy J. I don't think you want me to do that rap thing, right? But I remember it very well. But at 14, I should not have been saying the things, but I was dope. But I should not have been saying the things that I was saying and had never experienced before. But I was heavily influenced. So don't have anything for you. Nothing appropriate for our viewers at this time. So.
Right.
So Kuma, that's the after discussion.
Exactly.
We gotta hear.
Yeah, there you go.
We gotta hear this.
Wow. Well, those are definitely some legends right there. Little Kim, Foxy Brown, Bone Thugs, Twister representing Chicago. So no doubt. So for you, Dr. Robinson, like, what was it like growing up for you? What was the community that kind of raised you? What was that like?
So I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas, and Little Rock, Arkansas, I don't know, maybe 40 to 45% African American, the ethnic demographic, racial demographics. So I grew up, mostly in a Black community. I went to a school that was about half and half. But the interesting thing, so I think I shared with you all earlier that I had family that passed away that I'm going to have to leave for. And this family is actually church family, because we grew up in a very, very, very close knit community in our church. And so like the best friends that I have, they came from church. The people that I rock with, people that financed me when I graduated from high school, from college. When I did my PhD at the Black church. Like, so I was heavily churched. I will say that. I'm in a very supportive church community, because I know the church gets a lot of slack nowadays, but I grew up in an actual family. They were an actual family. So for me, my community, for the most part, was a close-knit family of church folks. Outside of that, my mom was an educator. She was a business education teacher at Central High School. I don't know if you're familiar with the Little Rock Nine from Central High School. So she taught at Central High School for over 40 years. And then my dad was he started off as the state registrar. So he signed all the birth certificates for anybody born in Arkansas. And he was the first Black state registrar, to my knowledge, as well. And they were first generation college students. So I grew up in a home where education was really, really important. The community I was around, a lot of them were that were my parents' age. They were first generation college students, or they were doing very, very well in whatever field they had. But most of my influences came from my church community more than anything. So what I hear a lot now when people talk about, when I say I'm from Little Rock, they think I grew up in a violent community, because I don't know if you remember, there was an HBO special called Gang Banging in Little Rock. So when people hear Little Rock, they automatically think gang banging in Little Rock, and there was gang banging, but I was not heavily influenced or connected to that gang banging. Or they talk about the Clintons, there's the Clinton airport is there and whatnot. So, and I did go to school with Chelsea Clinton when I went to junior high school. I think it was in the 7th grade when she was in the 9th, but otherwise, yeah, I wasn't heavily influenced by, some of the things that are often associated with Little Rock, Arkansas. I grew up in a tight, the African-American community. We were tight. The church was very, very active in our lives and in the community. So that was pretty much what it was like growing up for me, heavily disciplined. The stuff that you heard me saying I listened to, I wasn't supposed to be listening to that stuff. So we could not watch certain things on TV. We could not listen to certain things. And so me and my brother at the time, we would sneak and listen to certain things. So I grew up very structured, I'll say, very structured. I didn't want for anything. But during that time, as you'll probably ask at some point, I had issues with food and I had issues with my body image. So growing up for me, my world circled around how I saw myself and how I saw my body. So.
Wow. Yeah, that's actually was going to be like my next question. That's a good segue there. I wanted to ask you about that relationship with food that you talk about and what that looked like for you.
So probably around the age of maybe 10 or so, 10 or 11, I started to get what they would say is chubby or chubby. Now, when you look back on it, you probably say, oh, that's just normal way for a kid. But other kids would call me Jelly Belly Jenelle, or I remember hearing Jenelle has 3 stomachs, or Jenelle is bigger than the teacher. I remember these things because I got teased often because I had, I got to be a little chubby. Now, at the time, for my age, I probably was just overdeveloped for my age, to be honest. But this teasing and this bullying and this me feeling like, and family and friends doing the bullying as well, I started to develop an eating disorder. And so at the time, it probably wouldn't be, it wasn't considered a true eating disorder, but I just stopped eating. So I might eat a cracker a day. My parents eventually caught on and they saw that I was, because what I used to do is I would sit at the table and I'd act like I'm eating and I would spit the food out in a napkin and hold it under the table and then throw it away. Because I so badly just wanted to stop being called fat and I wanted to be light. And around that age, peer approval is such a big thing around that, 10 to 14, 15 age, and we're forming our identity, during that time. And so they eventually caught on, so much so that they would tell people, in my church and my family, watch her because she will play like she's eating and then she won't eat. So we need to make sure she eats. But I actually lost a great deal of weight from starving myself. And I played basketball as well in junior high school. So that and doing that, eventually lost this weight, which eventually got me into the field of nutrition because I really wanted to teach people how to do things the healthy way. But that was what formed initially my identity. And if you start something on a foundation that is flawed, you will continue to have issues. And I continued with body image issues, no matter how small I was, no matter how small I got, I continued with those issues throughout college, after college. And even now, I kind of bounce around with how I feel. But it was that, it was those experiences that cultivated my mindset and my thinking. And I've had to do a lot to try to overcome that thinking of even if I am fat, like you still can be beautiful, or redefining that word, or, coming up with a more realistic expectation of what a healthy body is supposed to look like, which can come in a variety of sizes, and it can look different, for everybody. So, my journey has been exactly that, a journey. And that's what I share with people. Just like we talk about our emotional and our mental journey, our bodies have physical journeys. There are times when you need a little bit more weight for what life is throwing at you. There are times when you got too much weight and you need to get rid of that burden because of the things that you're called to do. And so your body will tell you these things if you listen. If you pay attention, it will tell you, you know, but a lot of us, we're not listening to our bodies, and we don't know how to listen to our bodies as well. So for me, it's been a journey of learning that piece and kind of a trial and error of what's going to work best for me. So did that answer the question? I feel like I went all the way around the world for that.
Oh, that was perfect.
Okay.
And you know, you said something about how that experience growing up around food helped to kind of inform your intellectual journey toward wanting to learn and help people about nutrition. I also noticed that around the same time, were you like looking at colleges, and did that help determine the subject course you took at FAMU, or I'm sorry, at college?
Yeah, so that when I was in high school, I heard, you know, I'm interested in nutrition and health, and I heard of a field called dietetics, and I had never heard of it, so I started to delve into it. And my dad, he worked at the health department with a lot of dietitians. Now, I'll give you this put up front. I am not a dietitian, but that was the track that I started on, wanting to become a dietitian. And so that's how I learned more. And then I started looking at programs at different universities that had this dietetic program, and ended up at University of Arkansas for a couple of years. And then I changed my major because I was like, I don't think I want to do this. And I moved to another university, University of Central Arkansas, and I changed my major to health education. And I thought I wanted to teach something in health, but I ended up graduating, worked at the health department in Arkansas, but I still had this passion for nutrition that wouldn't go away. And so I decided to go back to school, and I got the master's in nutrition. And then I went right back into health education, working in health education after I got the master's in Mississippi at their Air Force Base. And while I was there, I still had this passion for nutrition. And I saw they had a PhD program at Mississippi State University. So I applied for that program, and I worked at Mississippi State University at the same time in a nutrition field, and got that PhD, and then actually went straight back into health education as a health science professor at West Virginia State University.
Okay.
And so I did that, and then I saw this amazing opportunity at Florida A&M University. And at the time, so if you know anything about West Virginia, less than 5% African American. I was actually at an HBCU, but it was less than 15% Black at this HBCU. A great experience, though. Let me say that the people treated me very, very well. I have no complaints about West Virginia State, no real complaints. But what I wanted was an opportunity to empower make a greater influence on young people of color, because those are the people that come in the classroom for me and are often overlooked. When I was at West Virginia State University, I remember I had a group of football players, all Black, and they came in the classroom and they all sat in the back. Only Black students in the class, and they all sat in the back. And they got their earphones on, and they're, or they're asleep. And I remember that was the first class. And I said to myself, I can either let them fail, because that's what's going to happen, or I can say something. And so the next class, I told all of them, I told the students in the front, I'm going to need you to move. And I made all of the football players, I made them come to the front. And they just looked at me like this. They were feeling like, oh my gosh, she's going to be one of those. And so I taught the lesson. And when I was done, everybody was getting up, and I looked at them. I said, don't move, don't move, don't move. And, so they sat back down, and I had a conversation with them when they left. I told them, whether you like it or not, you're a role model. Whether you like it or not, that's just what you are. You're here, you're representing the football team, your leaders, and you're Black. And I said, I got you, but you're going to have to sit in the front of class. If you're sleepy, do what you need to do, but you need to be in the front of class every time. I'm here. I'm here for you. And only one out of maybe 8 or 9 of them actually failed the class. The rest of them, they were in class, they were attentive, they were engaged. One of them became like one of my mentees. He actually lives in Tallahassee. So I saw him numerous times.
What's his name? What's his name?
His name is Ronald.
Okay. I don't know if I told you, but I have a younger brother that went to West Virginia State and played football, so I have to ask him. I hope he did not. I hope he did not. I hope he did not have his headphones on, and I hope he was
I know this. If he was
paying
in my
attention.
class, if he was in my class, he didn't. He didn't. But that experience is what inspired me, because what I saw is that a lot of the young people of color, faculty will see them and not say nothing. You know they're not engaged. You know they're not there. But it's like, well, if you want to get an F, you can get an F. But I refuse to be that professor, because I know that, for a lot of people that are not people of color, they're going to be all right. In my mind, at least, I feel like they're going to be all right. But the people of color, Black folks, let me say that, let me be specific, Black folks, in my mind, I'm not sure, and I'm like, you've got to be engaged. And I want to do everything that I can to empower you and prepare you for your next step. And so I never want to say that I didn't do everything that I could to grab you, to go get you. So I used to tell people that I'm called to teach and encourage everybody, but I'm called to empower Black people of color. So that's what enticed me to Florida A&M University. I was like, I can go to an HBCU and make a greater impact on young people of color. And I've been here for 7.5 years now, trying to make an impact on young people of color. So.
Wow. And we're so glad that you are at our alma mater, because we both went to FAMU. And,
okay.
That just means a lot that we have
That's right.
educators who are vested in our students to help them.
Encouraging and, setting expectations, which is important, because everybody doesn't understand, the expectations. So it's important that you were and are doing that. So thank you, Dr. Robinson.
Absolutely.
And it's homecoming. And it's homecoming at FAMU. So big up, man.
It is.
Congratulations to the world. It's FAMU's homecoming.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. I feel like I'm talking a lot. John, do you have a question you want to jump in, or?
John's gonna go off script if he asks a question. I'm prepared for that. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I want to ask you this. So, as we're getting into kind of the second half of the conversation, we talk about the reason why we're having this conversation, nutrition in us, and why is it so important for people of color, particularly Black people, and really Black American health, because what I'm realizing and researching is that it's African Americans who are getting some of these conditions more so than Black people from other places. And so I want to get your opinion about what the state of Black American health is right now, in your opinion, from your corner of the universe.
So, I think it's been widely publicized. People have been widely educated about some of the predominant health issues of African Americans: high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, obesity. So we know that there are, the statistics are high for us in these areas, or there are clear disparities. They're higher for us than they are for, even for white counterparts, and even for other people of color. And so I think that part of the issue, there are a lot of contributing factors, I believe, to the state of health in America for Black people, a lot of factors. And so what I like to do is talk about those factors that we can actually make a change in. And then there are some things we can't do very much about, okay? And when I say make a change, I mean, what can you directly do as a person? I'm not even talking about policy or systems right now. I'm talking about at the individual level, what can you do? And the only thing it seems that the biggest thing, let me say, that it seems we can do it at an individual level to change our health or to decrease our risk of some of those issues is to pay attention to the food that we are consuming. And so that's, so I'm in nutrition. So of course, I'm going to go towards, eating more fruits and vegetables, eating lean meats, decreasing, the amount of sugar or added sugars in the diet, drinking more water, exercising. All of these are things that we know to do. But for some reason, for a plethora of reasons, we don't do these things. But I do think that, there are a lot of studies that show when you make healthy decisions consistently, because I think we'll have little bouts for a few weeks or for a few days, or I'm going to do this detox for this amount of time, or that we have these bouts. But the issues persist because of the lack of consistency. Nobody gets diabetes from drinking 1 cup of juice for that one day. Nobody gets high cholesterol from eating a burger once a week. You get it from having consistent food that is consistently high in fat, or food that is consistently high in sugar or sodium. When you are consistently consuming these things, this is what is going to block up the body. This is what's going to cause inflammation in the body. This is what's going to contribute to a higher risk of all of those illnesses and diseases. And so we can actually make a change in that area. We might not be able to do a lot of things, immediate things, systematically or policy-wise, but we can make immediate changes in our behaviors by, consuming foods that have more nutrients and consuming foods that have less fat, and listening to our bodies. So, that answer your question?
That does. And you said something about other factors as well. And what I hear is also that there are environmental factors that are influencing these health outcomes.
Absolutely.
Can you elaborate on some of those environmental factors that have a direct correlation with inflammation that we can control or limit?
So the things that we can control or limit that have to do with environmental factors. Well, when I thought about environmental factors, the first thing I thought about was food deserts or food swamps. So often they call food swamps are places that are usually inundated with fast food restaurants. They're called food swamps. And so a lot of times you'll have a lot of your Black neighborhoods that are inundated with food swamps. And then you have food deserts, meaning there are a lack of healthy options, fresh fruits and vegetables in certain areas. And a lot of times in your rural areas, you'll have food swamps where they have to, travel a long distance in order to get healthier options. So I think that when I think about environmental factors, I think those things play a role. What do you have access to? That's what I think about when I think about what is directly in your environment that you have access to. And if all you have is a Wendy's or the McDonald's right there, then that's what you're going to gravitate towards. If all you have is a certain amount of money, then that's what you're going to gravitate towards. If there's a lack of education, even on what to choose in those areas, then you're going to gravitate towards getting the burger and the fries, or the cheese dip and the chimichanga, whatever it is on the menu. So I do feel like you still can make healthy options even in a food swamp. I will make that clear. I am not the person who tells people don't eat a fast food restaurant, don't eat here, don't eat there. My thing is, what do you have access to? I'm going to work with you and what you have access to. If you tell me the corner store is all you have access to, we're going to go to the corner store and see what we can figure out to make, because the goal is to make the healthiest decision you can with what you have access to. Now, while you have access to it, the goal, as well for our communities should be to increase the availability of what you have access to. So in your communities, we should be looking at, creating those food gardens and getting those grocery stores to include healthier options. And at the same time, you've got interventions like, nutritionists or dietitians coming in and doing the education piece as well. But we got to work within people's means until they get to the place where they can actually make those decisions. There's no point in me talking to you about, let's say, being vegan and you do not have access to fresh fruits and vegetables on a regular basis. It's no point in me telling you you need to eat more lean meats when the only thing that you have immediate access to is beef jerky, or burgers, on a regular basis. I need to deal with what you have access to while we work on improving the access that you have or the availability of options for you.
I like that point about consistency and options, right?
Mhm.
We're in just finishing football season with our middle child, and you're at the football game, it's all kind of crap food. And I remember recently we were thinking, can we run by Wendy's or McDonald's or something because it's nice and fast and consistent. But I remember watching a guy walk in the game and he had a Wendy's bag and he was eating a salad. And I thought to myself, oh yeah, there's salads at Wendy's, right? I mean, it's about, again, options and having those things top of mind, being able to, make good decisions consistently, especially based on those options that are available, or looking or realizing and looking for those options. That's important also.
And you make a difference. We make a difference, because what is happening, if you see in even fast food restaurants, they are now offering vegetarian burgers. I just left a barbecue restaurant for lunch and they had vegetarian burnt ends. And I was like, vegetarian? What are vegetarian burnt? Now, I know a lot of times when we see that, we're like, that's probably not appetizing. But the point is, they actually have it. They see that word, which we can talk about later, and they think people are trying to be healthier, so we're going to make sure we offer them this, and so they're trying, and so there's not a lack of options at these places that are healthier. I didn't say they were the healthiest, but they are healthier than, and that's the thing.
To your point also, Dr. Robinson, we've talked about this before, myself, you, and Takuma offline, in the sense that, when you're really making an effort, especially when you're trying to be creative. I was telling you all before that, my wife and I have fasted. And when we fasted, I mean, again, she was coming up with these amazing recipes, with mushrooms and onions and all of this, just these delicious alternatives. And again, because we were being creative, because we were fasting, and we, this was a Daniel fast, so we were eating, some seafood and some things of that nature, not red meat, not pork, not chicken, things of that nature. But because those options were so creative, and she's an amazing, chef, cook, baker, all of the above. I mean, those options became real options. Like, man, this is delicious. This is a real option. So that's important to be creative, with what you have available to you.
Absolutely. I agree. I've been to, I was in Atlanta this past weekend and frequented a couple places that had, bowls where you can choose your items for the bowls. And each time, I've got avocado and chicken and quinoa and spring mix. And, I'm making, of course, the healthy decisions, and it's plated so beautifully. Even these bowls, they just look appetizing. And if I could have that on a regular basis, just because of how it looks, I would eat that on a regular basis. So I think plating and being creative with recipes and being creative with trying new things is definitely important to getting people to eat healthier. So.
I wanted to ask you this question because I think when people hear conversations like this, they're like, oh gosh, they want me to be a vegan. I got to give up steak. I got to give up chicken wings and pepperoni pizza. Can you talk about why?
Balance, right, Takuma?
There's that word again. Can you talk about veganism and why that may or may not be the answer for some people, and how even that can go left?
So, we know being a vegan means that there's no meat anywhere. There's no meat byproducts anywhere. And so that is very, very difficult to do. If you go to the grocery store and even look at the ingredients, there's always meat is flavor enhancer. Meat is a form of seasoning for a lot of our foods. And so fat that you can get from meat sources is a preservative. It preserves certain foods. And so it's just very difficult to find anything that is not influenced in some way within the ingredients by meat, except just fresh fruits and vegetables. I tell people it is very, very difficult to be vegan consistently. So if this is a decision you want to make, you need to make it as an educated decision. You need to research. You need to find those recipes you're talking about. You need to pack a lot of your foods, because a lot of places you go, if you're going to a work meeting or you're going to a party, they are not making sure they have vegan options available for you. So it's a lot of prepping and packing. I know people that keep ice chests in their car just so they make sure they've got options continuously. It's just not, it's not for everybody. And there are some people who tried to go vegan. I know a couple of celebrities that tried to go vegan, and it was more detrimental to them, because when you take meat out of the diet, if it was heavy in your diet, a lot of times it's what contributed to the B vitamins in your diet. So you're taking certain nutrients out of your diet, and if you're not replacing it with an enormous amount of certain fruits and vegetables or certain items that contain the nutrients that you took out, then you're going to have deficiencies. And so for a lot of people, it's just very difficult to maintain that type of diet. And it's not advantageous for everybody to be on that diet. If a person is always on the go, it's very difficult for you to be vegan. If you got kids and they don't want to be vegan, it's very difficult for you to be vegan. It's not impossible, because I know there are people who do it. So anybody watching, you're like, well, I do it, it's easy for me. It's easy for you, but you are the anomaly. You are the anomaly. And I think that if a person can do it, it's a great dietary lifestyle. Let me say that. It's a great dietary lifestyle. If you want to live that way, it's a great dietary lifestyle, but you just need to do your research, because it's very difficult to sustain that lifestyle. And it's not best. I don't believe it's best for everyone. Everybody's body is different. Everybody's needs might be different. What everyone has access to is different. So you need to assess whether or not you can actually go without meat. How does your body feel when you go without meat? How does your body, how do you supplement the nutrients that you didn't get from meat? How do you put that into the diet when you take that out? How do you prep your meals every day? There's a lot of planning. A lot of that goes into being vegan. So
Facts, 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 facts. Because there is a such thing as a processed foods vegan, and you don't
Oh,
necessarily want to
yeah.
be that either.
Yes, because Oreos are vegan. So mhm.
Indeed, indeed.
Oreos are vegan. Wow, interesting. I could get on that. I could get on that. Oreos. Hey, Dr. Robinson, I wanted to you referenced something about you say your kids, right? If your kids are not vegan, or if your kids are not vegetarian or whatever, again, this is difficult at times, because, your family structure or those around you or your environment definitely, is a factor here. And one of the things that, I referenced when we talked previously, especially in communities of color, and specifically Black communities, well, I would say communities of color, it can be challenging, just kind of the cultural nuances of things, right? Hey, Jenelle, you looking thin, right? Takuma, you're not gonna get another plate. I mean, all of these little cultural nuances based around food and community sometimes can be very challenging, right? In the sense of not trying to be too good for somebody. Oh, John not eating pork, he ain't eating the pig no more. You're not trying to hurt anybody's feelings, or try to be better than anybody, or try to, whatever, be higher, higher and mighty than thou, or whatever. You're just trying to do right by your current situation, your future situation, where you want to be as an individual. But sometimes related to mom, dad, auntie, grandma, whatever, it can be quite challenging. Well, you want to talk about some of those cultural nuances, and maybe how to navigate that, because those are real life complexities.
Yeah, I mean, just to be frank with you, I just would say prepare to get your feelings hurt, because there are certain customs and traditions that people have tied so closely to their identity that when you reject it, it's like you're rejecting a part of your identity. And it takes, especially when we're talking about the older generation, it's just very difficult to undo some of the mental conditioning of tying the food to the identity the way it's tied to. I remember when I gave up pork, what was that, 2006, 2007? And pork was a staple in my diet growing up. You know, we had bacon or sausage for breakfast, bologna and ham, and you know, greens are seasoned with pork, and you know, a lot of the vegetables are seasoned with pork. And so when I gave up pork, I gave it up. I'm asking, the green beans have pork in them? Okay, well, I can't eat them. So I got to that point, and I remember my dad said, "You grew up on this. You grew up on this. So you saying it's bad for us to eat pork?" And I said, I'm not going to judge what's good for you or not, but I know for me, I don't want to consume that anymore for a plethora of reasons. One being, it was just high fat, high sodium, and that's going to be it was a major contributor for me. Now, if you're just eating a little bit of it here and there, that might be different. But for me, if it's a staple in my diet and it's high in fat and high in salt, that might be something I want to reconsider, or I want to seriously limit. But I just got rid of it. And I think, I had to deal with that. And I had to have those conversations where it's like you're rejecting us in some way because you don't want to eat this. I don't do dairy anymore. So the mac and cheese I can't eat. And that's because I have a dairy intolerance, which is different from lactose intolerance, by the way. But I have a dairy intolerance, so I get acne, I get cysts on my face in response. And a lot of women, as they age, there are hormonal differences in their body that cause them to do that. But it's still a conversation. Like, you don't eat this anymore? What can you eat? And they get upset when you go out to eat and you ask questions about the menu and it's like, why can't you just eat? And it's like the more educated you get on something and try to do better by your body, the more you have to come against that. So to be honest, I can't tell you, like, these are some best practices. I think what has happened as time has progressed, I just continue to have the conversations, at least like with my parents and family members. When I got to the point where I'm like, I don't eat this. So they'll educate other people. Jenelle doesn't eat pork. So, they'll just educate other people for me. So it's just become, the norm. And on occasions, I've gotten them to stop eating pork for a little while, for a certain amount of time, just to see, if there's any difference for them. But I think we've just tied, it's just so much tied to our identity, the customs, the traditions. There's a lot of love in our food. There's a lot of history concerning food. I was listening to a comedian recently, and they were talking about something. I'm in nutrition, and I'll say I didn't even think about this, but he was saying that he was talking about the blandness of food before immigrants. And when you think about, what Europeans were going, they're going to get spices, they're going to get seasonings. These were the things they were, going to different lands, going to different countries to get stuff to make their food taste better. So, so when I think about that, there's so much more. And so we put so much flavor and seasoning and love into the food. So I understand where there's an identity crisis. And I think you can have a balance there. We can love food, we can love how it's cooked, and we can practice portion control for those things that might be a little bit heavier in fat and salt and sugar. We can also practice, I'm not going to eat that, but can we make some alterations to that? And so that macaroni and cheese is just a little bit lower in fat, or can we make some alterations? And instead of using regular milk, can we use almond milk for this and just try it? I think I suggested one year, let's do a vegan Thanksgiving. It was like, that's not happening. We're not a vegan Thanksgiving. And I'm like, you can try to incorporate and vegan Thanksgiving, but what I did get them to do is vegan meals. We did do let's have dinner and let's have a vegan dinner. And so it's really just having those conversations where you can incorporate small little changes here and there, but it takes time. You gotta, and you gotta have tough skin because they're gonna call you out. You ain't
Oh
black
yeah,
now.
oh yeah,
You ain't
oh yeah.
black. You ain't grew up. This ain't my son. This ain't my daughter. Look at what you
Yes,
look
yes.
like now. You grew up on it. You ate it. You ain't have no health problems. So it's just, continue to have those conversations.
Yeah, that tofu turkey ain't quite hitting like the real thing.
It's and that's fine. And that's fine, which is why I say, if we're not going to change the food, we're going to change how much we eat of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Wow. You mentioned something a few ticks back about this that I was interested in. It's about nutritional deficiencies. What if any, what if any observations have you made about the nutritional deficiencies that Black people have, particularly Black women and Black men? Are they the same? Are they different? What does that look like in your opinion?
So when we talk about nutrition deficiencies, we're saying that a person is not getting enough of a certain vitamin or mineral in reference to whatever the standard is. And the standard was set by some type of research they did, looking to see these people this age and this gender, where should they be when it comes to vitamins and minerals. And so when you're not meeting that standard in a certain area, we say that there's a deficiency. Oftentimes in other countries, they'll call it being malnourished, because when there's a deficiency, that means there's some type of you're not getting nourished in this particular area. So malnourishment is not necessarily just about I'm not eating enough food. It could be I'm not eating enough of a particular nutrient as well. So when we think about deficiencies and Black people, I haven't seen a whole lot in the literature about deficiencies except vitamin D.
Vitamin D, yeah.
Vitamin D, which that's a whole nother area about our skin being even harder for us to get vitamin D from the sunlight because of the color of our skin. So it's a lot harder for us to get natural vitamin D. So I know a lot of people that might take supplements of vitamin D. So that's the only one that I've seen consistently in the literature as far as deficiencies. I do know we don't get enough fiber, which the recommendation is, I believe it is 38 grams for men and 25 for women. It's somewhere between 25 to 38 for women and men. And don't get enough fiber, which of course we know fiber is going to come from fruits and vegetables and beans and grains. Don't get enough protein. A lot of us don't get enough protein. Calcium. So calcium would be, and that is directly, I think, correlated with those that a lot of people in the Black community are lactose intolerant. So, so when we talk about calcium deficiency, I think it's always, a lot of times it is tied to that lactose intolerance. Omega-3s, that's going to be your fatty fish, your certain nuts and seeds are going to give you omega-3s. So those are, I think, that are undervalued or underlooked. You're not looking at the omega-3s. Has been an increase in omega-3s, or a consumption of omega-3s is associated with a decreased risk of certain health issues, certain chronic health issues. So I think those would be the ones that I would, talk about if I was talking to the Black community: calcium, vitamin D, protein, fiber. We need to make sure we're increasing. And a lot of that is going to be coming from lean meats, fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. That's where we're going to get a lot of that from.
Yay or nay on the Mediterranean diet? That's been really popular lately. People are pushing the Mediterranean diet, which looks at, the diets of people from that part of the world. Lots of fruits and vegetables. Meat or protein isn't really the center of your meal. Are you with that? Do you think there's some merit to that being a better way to eat? And would you recommend that for people of color like us?
So the Mediterranean diet is going to, as you said, focus on fruits, vegetables, lean meats. So red meat is limited to, I think you might get it once or twice a week, or it might be allowable once or twice, but it's really mostly fish we're looking at, whole grains. I would say yay to the Mediterranean diet. I would say it's a great way to live. But I would also say the same thing I say concerning becoming vegan. Does it work for you? Is it something that you can sustain? Can you consistently commit to this? We need to get away from the word I'm on a diet and say, this is my dietary lifestyle. I might occasionally, dip into some other things, but my dietary lifestyle is X, Y, or Z, and live that way. We're making too many changes in our body can't keep up. One day we paleo, the next day we keto, then we trying vegan. Our body's like, what we gonna do? Because I was set up to be sustained for a certain amount of time on this type of diet. Get with it. And then when the changes, to our body happen in our journey, then we'll change again. But for right now, can we stick with one thing? So I think it's whatever works for you at that juncture in your journey. You need to assess, what are my needs and what am I willing to do and what am I not willing to do? Because I'm convinced that a lot of dietary lifestyles are mismatched because the diet, it sounds sexy. It sounds like, everybody's jumping on it, like being vegan. But you don't have the skills to do it. You don't have the access to do it. You don't have the resources to do it. So there's a mismatch. Mm-mm. And to me, that's where more health professionals should focus. We don't have to sit and tell people eat more fruits and vegetables and lean meats. It's matching what's going to match your current lifestyle, because you're more likely to sustain it. If I hear your story and I hear the things that are important to you, what food means to you, if I hear those things and I learn about your day-to-day, you're more likely to consistently eat in a certain way when it matches your lifestyle versus, just something random. So.
I mean, as usual, it just flies by when we do
It
these
does.
things.
Takuma,
yeah.
I wanted to reference, when she referenced stories, I wanted to just share with our community that we're going to be doing some upcoming collaboration with Dr. Robinson, speaking about nutrition and Black men specifically, and talking about those food stories and exploring our relationship with food, our connections and traumas around food and nutrition, and how those issues inform our diets, or as Dr. Robinson just said, our dietary lifestyle and health journeys. So keep on the lookout for that. We'll have more information about that, but I'm excited about these food stories. As I told Dr. Robinson, I could talk about rice. We could do 3 sessions on me and rice and what that means. So yeah, I look forward to that. And we're
Did you say
about,
you're salt on the watermelon or no?
No, I'm just straight watermelon. Yeah, no. I mean, I've had it before and I don't hate it. Okay. But I don't desire it. Also, but I will tell you, no sugar on grits for me, or sugar on rice. I like grits, flavorful, with a flavor that's more savory, not sweet. Same thing with rice.
Not even on white rice. You wouldn't put sugar and butter on white rice?
No, that's not my thing. I've had it. My mother-in-law makes it like that, and I had it. I don't hate it, but it's not something I wouldn't order it, or I wouldn't request somebody to make it. So, yeah, but the grits.
Sugar, well, no, yeah, I haven't been anywhere where they actually put sugar and butter, but I know I grew up having rice for breakfast with sugar and butter on that rice. Yeah. Well, so I don't know this seasoned rice that you all speak of. I just know, maybe brown rice, but white rice is gonna have sugar and butter on it. Nobody's eating some dry white rice with some salt and pepper. No, not even no dry white rice.
No. I can put that rice. I can put that rice with my eggs, or with my whatever meat option.
With sugar,
whatever meat option. no sugar, and especially on grits. No, keep the sugar away from the
Yeah,
grits.
I get it. I get, which is probably would be considered the healthier way to do it. But I'm just letting you know, a lot of people where I'm from at least grew up with sugar and butter on that rice. So
Yeah,
it's a non-negotiable for a lot. When I talk to for instance, my dad about certain things, it's like it's a non-negotiable. Like, oh, spaghetti, where's the bread at? Non-negotiable that you have bread. Or you all have talked
that's
about,
right.
some people are like, you having spaghetti, we having fish with it, right?
Fish. That's
That's
right.
That's right. Which is
like, I don't want it.
Backtown. That's Chicago
So those
thing.
are
it
conversations we
is
have.
Chicago. Like, yeah, again, it can be so foreign if that was not your experience. So again, we got a lot of these discussions that are coming up. We might have team salt on grits. We might need to make T-shirts because it's gonna be some real impactful discussions and some sides to be chosen. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Wow, I just did the raise the roof thing. What a middle-aged move to do right there.
Right.
There you go.
We had pre-conversations before this interview, and this, I want to posit this as kind of advice for people out there who may be listening to this, who may have maybe some generational or trauma around food. Do you have any advice for those folks who may be dealing with maybe some trauma around food and wanting to get that addressed or resolved?
Well, I definitely think it has to. It needs to be addressed in therapy. I think. Well, first of all, I think everybody needs a therapist. But when we talk about food trauma, a lot of times when people have eating disorders, to me, there's a form of food trauma there, or they're misusing food in a certain way based on how they see certain things about their body. There's also, I've heard stories of women who would eat more because they wanted to be fatter, or they wanted to be unattractive to someone who was abusing them. So there's a lot of things that are surround food trauma. That word triggers a lot of things when we think about abuse or something that's connected to food. When I think about food, a lot of times too, I'm thinking about for me, it was consistent, bullying, or for me, that was trauma. I still to this day can cry thinking about the, people that made fun of me because of the issues back then. And so I think having a good therapist, a lot of times people, what happened when I was dealing with my food issues back then, my parents sent me to a dietitian. A dietitian they are not trained to deal with food trauma. They're not trained to deal with any type of trauma. I took a class in my dietetic program, one class on nutrition counseling. And from what I remember, that had nothing to do with exploring the outside influences of how that affects what you eat, how that affects your relationship with food. And all of the counseling sessions are geared towards helping you to make better health decisions. There's little you can do to help someone make better health decisions if you're not first dealing with their mind, where those decisions come from and where they're constructed, and what is cultivating the mindset that is causing them to make these decisions. So, there's a reason when we talk about like bulimia. Bulimia, you eat a lot of food and then you throw it up. The easy thing is, let's stop eating a lot of food and let's stop throwing it up, but you're not dealing with the core issue of why are they doing that in the first place. And so, it's a mental issue that usually has to be dealt with initially. So I would definitely say, you need to work with a therapist, eventually a nutritionist, but work with a therapist first. My therapist actually has recommended several of her patients to me. She has recommended, so she deals with the mental aspect, and then I can come in and help with, helping them make better decisions. And even then, I try to use a holistic approach. I ask them other questions that might play a role in what they're eating and their behaviors associated with eating. So definitely therapy is needed to deal with that.
Yeah, we have to normalize therapy for all of us. It's a vital component to living and to achieving that balance of health and wellness as Black people in America. Absolutely. I want to wrap things up here. Well, with John, do you have anything that you'd like to ask? Because I was going to just ask, like, is there anything else you'd like to add, Dr. Robinson? Is there a way people can get in touch with you if they have more information or wanting to get connected to some kind of resources?
So my website, you can find me at drjanellenicole.com. That's DrJenelleNicole.com. You can also find me on Instagram at Dr. Jenelle Nicole. Find me on Facebook, Jenelle Robinson. There are a lot of resources on my website. There are links to previous talks that I've done, a blog I used to run. There's actually a link to a free weight loss course called 33 Secrets and Solutions from the Most Effective Weight Loss Programs. So that's a free online course that's available as well. My TEDx talk is on there where you can see how I talk about how I use the performing arts to help people eat healthier. So yeah, there are a lot of resources there. And then, if you want to directly contact me, there is a contact form, and I do free consultations in efforts to see if we'd be a good match for me to coach, or develop a wellness plan for you. So you've got that option.
That's awesome. We greatly appreciate, I'm gonna let Takuma close it out, but we greatly appreciate this time that you share with us, and we look forward to the future work that we have to do together. It's you're a wealth of information, and love your journey, and grateful that you are sharing with others. So, and grateful that you're sharing it with us in our community.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to serve today. Thank you for allowing me to serve. I always enjoy the conversations with you and Takuma. We could probably talk forever about food and anything and else, everything that has associated with it. So I look forward to continuing our work.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we're just glad to have you, and just the value of this conversation that, people will get out of this. So thank you so much for this.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Right. All right. Signing off. Thank you for joining us, everyone. On behalf of myself, Dr. Robinson, and Mr. John D. Brown, have a good one.
Thank you. Respect.